You are watching Fight Feed. Today I will be talking about the upcoming matchup between Ian Garry and Carlos Prates. As everybody saw, UFC had to find a new main event for UFC Kansas City on April 25th. It looks like Jamal Hill is out again, and I'm kind of butthurt about that because I wanted to see Jamal Hill go against Roundtree. This is the second time this matchup's been made, and unfortunately fallen through due to injury. I hope that Hill is able to recover. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like he keeps getting injured, especially in the legs. So I just hope he's able to come back, get back in there and make a statement. Despite, or I guess contrary to popular belief, I'm a big fan of Jamal Hill. And I did like he was able to go out there against Yuri and scrap it out and make a very good showing of himself. Now, getting into this Carlos Prates versus Ian Garry fight, I don't know if I was thinking about this the other day when Prates said, and I'm not even bullshitting when I say this, when Prates said, big news coming soon, I literally was like, I bet you they're going to get Ian Garry in there. And the reason why I was able to put that together is that Ian Garry has been very active recently, speaking on his disdain for the current situation of the welterweight division. And it seemed like he was a little bit trigger happy to get in there and get a fight going. So I actually thought, and I think I might have actually texted to my brother-in-law and said, I think that they might make that matchup. Hopefully they do. And boom, look at what comes out yesterday from Dana White. We got Prates versus Garry that's taking on that main event. In this fight, there's a lot of mixed opinions online. Everyone, on the side of Ian Garry is going to dog walk Prates. He's going to own this fight from start to finish. Whereas Prates fans are saying, I think he's going to catch Garry and put him out. So my opinion on this is that Ian Garry has been hittable in a lot of his fights. He's been hurt by Jordan Williams in a fight. If you ever watched that fight, it was Ian Garry's first fight in the UFC in 2021. It was on the Usman versus Covington 2 fight card in November. It was actually during Astroworld when, all those people died. I actually only know that because I was at Astroworld. I didn't go to Astroworld. My girlfriend did. I was chilling in the hotel room. I was preparing to watch fights. And what do you know? Everyone ended up watching the fights with me because, Astroworld happened and got canceled. Anyways, in that fight, Ian Garry got tagged pretty early on and hurt. But Ian Garry has shown in his career when he gets hurt, he has an ability to recover. Now, it is with, I would say, lower level strikers than that of a Carlos Prates. But with that, I think that Ian Garry's showing against not Neil Magny, but Jeff Neal was pretty impressive because I feel like in that fight, although it was pretty boring, and I didn't think that Ian Garry, I feel like I've been pretty unimpressed with some of his performances. Now, I also understand he's a very technical fighter and has an ability to find a win in whatever way he can, even if that means that he's not being the flashiest. But I feel like in that fight against Jeff Neal, looking back on it, Ian had great defense, and he had an ability to not get caught by some of those big shots that Jeff Neal was throwing his way. And ultimately, I think that he can bring that same level of IQ and skill to this fight with Prates, where it's going to play in his favor. Prates, on the other hand, I think, he is just a killer. The dude is a killer in the striking. If he's able to find that kill shot on Garry, and I think that what plays in Carlos's favor is he has a patience about him in the octagon, where it's like he's a killer, but at the same time, he's not rushing and putting himself in bad spots to get that W. And most of the time what we see, he gets opponents thinking too much, and then he ultimately is able to find that kill shot that puts him away. I feel like what's going to happen in this fight is that Ian Garry will win the fight. And the reason I think Ian Garry will win the fight, I will use an example of him fighting versus Michael Venom Page. Ian Garry, obviously, he was trying to say after the fight he was doing better in striking than Michael Venom Page, which we all know is bullshit. He was not doing anything in the striking and actually getting caught quite a bit. And I think Ian Garry realized that I could just take this dude down overpower him with grappling, and get the W. And I feel like that's exactly what he's going to do against Prates, especially with Ian Garry now training with the likes of Charles Oliveira. He is going to have a leveled up grappling that is, I just don't think Carlos Prates is going to be able to fend off. I think another thing that plays in Ian Garry's favor here is he's definitely the larger fighter. I think he's booked at 6'2" online, but he's not just like 6'2" lanky. He's got some thickness to him. So pause. But I think that Ian Garry, like I said, being the bigger fighter in this case, I think that he is just going to be able to overpower Prates, but also, having someone like Charles Oliveira and training with that team, he is going to have a lot of experience and an ability to probably get Prates in some bad positions on the ground. I don't know that he'll be able to finish Prates on the ground, but Prates, on the other hand, fighting with the fighting nerds, he definitely is not going to be a slouch on the ground. And I know, fighting with or training with Kyle Bahayo and some of the other fighting nerds who have a very high level ground game. I don't think that Prates is going to be necessarily bad on the ground. I just feel like Ian Garry, like I said, has this ability to bring fight IQ and his technicality into it to where he can get fighters in a bad position, but also get the W in whichever way he sees fit. I definitely do not think that Ian Garry is going to outstrike Prates and hurt Prates on the feet. I do not think that's going to happen. Ian, prove me wrong. I don't know. I just think that Ian is going to stand on the feet. He's going to try to strike with Prates. The second Prates is throwing anything out there that is hurting Garry, Garry is going to jump and trying to get that takedown. Garry was able to find those takedowns, but also find a lot of grappling exchanges and winning grappling exchanges against, Shavkat and other fighters as well. So I feel like in this fight, it's going to kind of probably turn into a bit of a wrestling match, unfortunately. I hope I'm dead wrong. I hope it's, fireworks from start to finish, but I just feel like Ian has shown such a leveled up style of grappling and also shown that he's going to go out there and try to get the win regardless of what it takes. So that could mean, when you're fighting a guy like Carlos Prates, that could mean a little bit of wet blanketing. And I'm not even going to fucking fault Ian Garry at this point because I have not been a fan of Ian Garry. I was initially, and then he really lost me with some of the delusional takes that he has. Him saying that him and Alexi Pereira, which who the fuck calls Alex Pereira Alexi Pereira? Like maybe his mom and dad, but Ian is with a Brazilian woman, and so I guess he now calls everybody Alex. Like he calls them by their Brazilian name. Anyway, he said him and Alexi Pereira have the best calf kicks in the UFC. Both have great calf kicks, and actually Alex Pereira I think is up there. Ian Garry's calf kick is great, but I have an issue as a fan when you say you have the best ones, but your record does not show that. And what I mean by this is that you have guys like Jonathan Martinez who have finished multiple fights with calf kicks or leg kicks. I don't think Ian Garry has one finish by a leg kick. So right there, statistically speaking, you're wrong. You don't have the best because you haven't finished fighters with those kicks. Now, Neil Magny, he basically dead-laid Neil Magny, so that was a great win for him. And also, like I said, he has a great calf kick. I just don't think Ian Garry that his calf kick is as great as, some of the other fighters in the UFC. So that's a bit of a gripe that I have there. I also have a gripe with him saying that he's outstriking MVP in their fight and that he hurt MVP badly on the feet. He did not hurt MVP once in that fight. Go back and watch that fight. Ian Garry did not hurt MVP at all. But he, after the fight, says that he did and feels he could have, I don't think he said he could have knocked him out, but he's like, I saw it in his eyes. He didn't want to be in there with me. No, dude, no. You took him down and laid on him for, a round, 2 of the rounds, right, to get the W. Because in reality, MVP was outstriking him. And Ian Garry looked outclassed on the feet. And I think any person who has a brain will actually agree with that statement. If you watch that fight, when they were standing, I don't think Ian Garry looked like he should be in there with MVP from a striking perspective. So I feel like, though, all that aside, you have to give Ian Garry respect here. The guy is stepping in on short notice yet again to fight the killers of the division. I mean, he fought Shavkat on short notice, which was an amazing step up, and I think that it was not a fun fight, and I think that from a striking perspective, pretty boring. I mean, they were playing patty cake on the cage, but the thing is, as a fan of this sport, you have to understand that although it might be a bit of a boring fight, this is what happens when you put two of the best in the world technically, especially two that have a very similar game technically, in the cage together. They're gonna, it's not gonna be the prettiest of fights. And so I think that Ian Garry stepping up on short notice against Shavkat, having the showing that he did, but then also going in here now against Prates, there's no way you can't have respect for this guy. I mean, regardless of all the bullshit or the antics outside the cage, Ian Garry taking this fight is really just probably the biggest risk he could take. And, it does have a lot of reward, but not necessarily, because if you look at it from a rankings perspective, Prates is pretty far down in the rankings compared to Ian Garry. I think Ian is a 7 and Prates is 13. So I think when you consider all of those factors, Ian Garry taking this fight is a huge plus. He's got my respect, and the dude's got major balls for doing this. I'm excited for this matchup. Let me know who you guys think is going to win below. Let me know if you agree with what I'm saying in terms of my take. I think that it's going to be Ian Garry potentially getting the W just by overpowering with the grappling. I will say, though, I would be very happy to see a win in favor of Prates and see him continue to rise up. So let's see what happens on April 25th. Thank you guys for watching.